Paris, the French Republic, once again finds itself at a political crossroads. On a 10th September morning in the courtyard of the Hôtel de Matignon, Sébastien Lecornu officially stepped into his new role as Prime Minister, succeeding François Bayrou. The ceremony, solemn and deliberate, was more than a passing of the torch. It was a moment of reflection on France's political turmoil, its divisions, and the challenges that now lie ahead. The transition unfolded under the gaze of ministers, staff, military officials and journalists. It carried both the weight of tradition and the urgency of crisis. France's politics remain unstable, its parliament fractured, and its citizens weary of repeated upheaval. This change of leadership, the third in a short span, underscored the fragility of the current system. And yet, amid instability, both the outgoing and incoming leaders sought to deliver messages of continuity and resilience. François Bayrou, dignified and calm in his farewell, began by addressing gratitude to his team. He praised their hard work and reminded them of decisive projects already prepared, projects now to be reviewed by his successor. His reflections did not seek grandeur. Instead, he distilled his message into three guiding verbs: help, gather, invent. François Bayrou said, "The first word I told you is help. I will do, and I am sure the whole team around me will do with me everything we can to help the government, first of all, because we have a little experience of things that are less easy than we think and of the challenges and difficulties, but also because the moment for France is a very important, very demanding, very dangerous moment. And so my help and our help are available to you at all times during the weeks and months to come." It was a striking admission. Bayrou, even in departure, offered his assistance to ensure continuity in a time of national turbulence. He then shifted to unity. Bayrou said, "I do not believe for a second that our country will remain forever in divisions, insults, violence, all that has been expressed recently and which is in reality a profound handicap for its future." His message was a rebuke of recent political behaviour, of insults traded across aisles, of unrest spilling into the streets. For Bayrou, France's divisions were not simply disagreements, they were a handicap threatening the nation's future. Finally, he spoke of invention, the need to face reality and build anew. Bayrou declared, "I think we must invent the new world that is emerging, that will emerge, but do so based on reality. And I am convinced that there are millions of French people who want to participate in this realistic reconstruction." Bayrou stressed that ideals still matter, but only when built on truth. He said, "To move towards the ideal, you have to start from reality." And it is this reality which has been, I believe, hidden for a long time, and which the French, I have no doubt, will take back control of. With those words, Bayrou closed his chapter. His farewell was not resignation, but continuity, a promise of support and a warning against illusion. He handed over power with a call to action, not complacency. Then it was Sébastien Lecornu's turn. Younger, determined, yet visibly conscious of the gravity of the moment, he took the stage not with triumphant rhetoric, but with humility. Sébastien Lecornu said, "I am not going to make any grand speeches because this instability and the political and parliamentary crisis that we are experiencing require humility and sobriety." His words reflected the reality. France stands in a political storm, its leaders viewed with suspicion, its institutions tested by deadlock. Grand promises would have rung hollow. Sobriety was the only honest tone. He began by thanking President Emmanuel Macron for his trust, but he quickly turned to salute François Bayrou. Lecornu said, "Above all, I want to salute the extraordinary courage with which you defended your deep convictions as activists and citizens until this last minute at Matignon. But I also believe in a form of justice, which means that one day all this will be recognised, and I say this as I'm also your junior, Mr. Prime Minister." In this, Lecornu showed respect for continuity, acknowledging that his predecessor's convictions, though sometimes divisive, were grounded in principle. Turning to the French people, he sought to inspire confidence. He said, "The second thing is to tell the French people that we will get there because deep down, as you have just said, there is no impossible path." But reassurance was quickly followed by blunt honesty. Lecornu warned, "We must fundamentally put an end to this double discrepancy. The discrepancy between the political situation and the discrepancy with what our fellow citizens legitimately expect for their daily lives, for the economic and social situation and their security." It was a frank acknowledgement of the gulf between politics and people's realities, a gap that had grown into a crisis of legitimacy. and he spoke from the perspective of his former role as Minister of the Armed Forces. France, he reminded the audience, is not insulated from global turbulence. Lecornu said, as outgoing Minister of the Armed Forces, we have seen this gap between domestic political life and global geopolitics, again in recent hours. We cannot continue this gap forever because obviously it will catch up with us. His warning was sharp. Ignoring international crises while drowning in domestic squabbles would eventually prove catastrophic. Lecornu then turned to the need for change, a renewal not only in method but in substance. He said, we will need breaks, not just in form and not just in the method of breaks, but also in substance. For him, the path forward is not mere adjustment, but transformation, more creativity, more technical rigour and greater seriousness in working with political opponents. The days of superficial compromise are over. He announced his plan to meet immediately with political forces and trade unions to open dialogue not with delay, but with urgency. He also promised to address the French people directly in the coming days. His strategy was clear. Rebuild trust not through speeches alone, but through engagement and action. After the speeches, the ceremony gave way to the human rhythm of transition. Lecornu walked through the corridors and courtyards of Matignon, greeting ministers, staff, generals and civil servants. He shook hands, exchanged words of encouragement and repeatedly offered thanks. Good morning echoed over and over as he acknowledged each person. Ministers in suits, generals in uniform, clerks and advisers who keep the machinery of state turning. It was an almost endless procession of greetings, but it carried symbolic weight. The new Prime Minister presenting himself not as a distant figure, but as a leader connected to his people. At one point, he addressed the staff directly, acknowledging the strain that frequent changes of leadership bring. Lecornu remarked, I imagine that the changes, sir, I'm not unaware that frequent changes are not easy for the teams in this House. So 3 prime ministers is a lot. It was both a recognition of the burden and a reassurance that he understood their fatigue. Continuity, he implied, must also mean stability for those who serve quietly behind the scenes. The greetings extended to generals, admirals and senior officials. Lecornu embraced the symbolism of continuity in state institutions, the military, the civil service, the political staff. His thanks to them were not perfunctory. They reflected his awareness that governance, especially in times of crisis, depends on those unseen layers of loyalty and expertise. By the end of the morning, Lecornu had officially assumed office. The transition was complete, but the work had only begun. The challenges facing France remain daunting: political paralysis, social unrest, economic fragility, and the shadow of global instability. Bayrou's farewell words, help, gather, invent, now hang as both guidance and warning. Lecornu's call for humility, breaks and reconnection set a tone for his premiership. This change at Matignon is not just a ceremonial passage of power, it is a test of whether France can reimagine its politics, heal its divisions and face its reality. For the French people, weary of instability, the sight of continuity offered a fragile hope. Yet the true measure will not be found in speeches or ceremonies. It will be found in whether their leaders can truly bridge the gap between politics and daily life, between promises and reality. And in that, the words of both leaders echoed as a challenge: to help, to gather, to invent, and to never forget that humility and reality must guide the path forward.